Yeah. I said, don't
You want us to just drop the roll quick?
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Policies and Priorities Committee meeting for December 10th, 2018. Before the approval of the agenda, I'd like to add a closed item, section 12, in regards to staffing, labor relations. Thank you. Need a motion for that? Yeah. Second. Councillor Kukalka, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, 2.1, approval of agenda. Recommendation, please. Councillor Majinski.
Monday, December 10th, 2018, Policies and Priorities Committee meeting agenda to be approved as presented.
As amended.
As
Seconder. Councillor Kirby, thank you. All in favor? Kirby, thank you. 3.1, November 13th, 2018, Policies and Priorities Minutes. Recommendation, please. Councillor Norbury.
That council adopt the minutes of the Tuesday, November 13th, 2018 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting.
Seconder. Councillor Kirby, thank you. All in favor? Carried. No business from the minutes. No petitions and delegations. Correspondence, 6.1. Auditor General, congratulations. Correspondence from the Auditor General for local governments dated November 29th, 2018. Congratulating Mayor and Council on their new term of office. Recommendation, please. Councillor Kirby.
Move for information.
Seconder, Councillor Kukalka. Correspondence from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing dated November 15th, 2018. Congratulating discussion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.3, Office of the Seniors Advocate. Congratulations. Correspondence from the Office of the Seniors Advocate, British Columbia, dated November 30th, 2018. Congratulating Mayor and Council on the recent election and providing information about their office. Recommendation, please. Councillor Norbury. Seconder, Councillor Lehman. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.4, Caribou Protection Process and Lack of Consultation. A collective letter dated November 16th, 2018 to the Premier and Ministers regarding concerns about the process underway between the BC government and federal government to achieve a Section 11 conservation agreement, and a letter of support from the Village of Valemont. Recommendation, please. Councillor Norbury.
Move for information.
Seconder, Councillor Kirby. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.5, Village of Pouskoupi, Caribou Impact Analysis. Correspondence from the Village of Pouskoupi to Minister Catherine McKenna, dated November 27th, 2018, demanding that the province and federal government suspend further caribou discussions and have a comprehensive impact analysis completed for the Peace River Regional District. Recommendation, please. Councillor Norbury.
For information.
Seconder, Councillor Kirby. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.6, Ministry of Attorney General, Cannabis Applications. Correspondence from the Ministry of Attorney General dated November 22nd, 2018 regarding licenses for the retail sale of non-medical cannabis. Recommendation, please. Councillor Kirby.
Move for information.
Seconder. Councillor Howe. Any discussion? All in favor? 6.7, Tumble Ridge Day Society, Grisfest 2018 and funding request. Correspondence from the Tumble Ridge Day Society regarding Grisfest 2018 and funding. Recommendation, please.
I think we should move for discussion.
Seconder, Councilor Cowper. Open for discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Well, let's see, everybody has probably had a good chance to read this. I just want to open the floor. I've been involved in this for years as a volunteer and also as a board member. I just want to hear what council thinks about the request of $150,000 moving forward for this year.
I can start off with that. I'm not surprised they're looking for that amount, given their financial status at the moment. I do believe that that's a large amount for the taxpayers to take on. Doing a bit of analysis over the last 3 years on the financials, every year is in the negative, and in my opinion, something needs to change there. If you're running a business at a loss every single year, something has to change. Business isn't viable continuing to run a loss. So I do support Grizzfest. I have volunteered as well, and I do enjoy the weekend. I think it brings a lot of out-of-town people to our town to spend money in our town, but I think council really has to have a look at whether or not the town is willing to support it. From what I can see, excuse me, I believe our attendance is a majority of out-of-town people compared to in-town people. And looking over the numbers on the reports and the correspondence, a lot of the support, a lot of the things that the TRD Society gets to put this function together is a lot of out-of-town support. I think a lot of their things that they buy and prepare for the weekend can be done locally. So yeah, it's a pretty tough call. $150,000 is a lot of money for the taxpayers, and if majority of our taxpayers aren't supporting, it's a pretty tough decision to go forward with it, especially running at a loss consistently. Anyone else? Councilor Albert?
So, I'm personally in support of Grizzfest as well. I don't think to the tune of $150,000. Looking at what we gave them last year, they asked for $40,000 in kind. We gave them $40,000 in cash, and they lost about $42,000. Right? I echo your sentiments in that what I would like TRD Society to bring to the table is a better business model that doesn't lose money every year and has to rely heavily upon the district, but I also understand that they're a young society, they're trying to stand on their own. I like how they're going to start fundraising throughout the year. I think that's a great way to bring supplemental income into it, and also to bring the hype alive more in Cumberland Ridge, so that it gets more buy-in from our community. And I understand this year they have more board members than they have in the past because more people are getting more involved. For me, I don't like. What I would prefer to see, is a partnership agreement for what they would like us to do for services, right? Like traditionally, I believe it's been, okay, we want this, how much will it cost us to set up the fence, to set up the whatever, right? And then last year they just sort of came in and said, hey, can we have this in kind donated? And we just said, yeah. Well, previous council. just said, yeah, and there's just a blanket, okay, we'll help you set it up, right? I like that, but I'd also like to see an official partnership agreement go into place outlining our responsibilities for that, rather than, this is how much money we're going to give you in kind. Let's just say, this is what we'll do for you, take that out of the equation, how much will it cost? That being said, I just don't want to have another run on, speech, because that's. I'll try and be quick with the last little bit. When we look at what our community can do for its residents, I think this sort of festival ticks off all the boxes. Like it's arts and culture. It brings in tourism. It brings in another activity for our residents, and it can help us help our local businesses without directly, without violating the community charter, right? So we put money into this festival, which brings people in, which spends money in our businesses, so that's why I think it's important to support it moving forward. I think there's a middle ground here between the 100, what we gave last year versus what they want, because I believe that as a society, they're still growing, and this 150,000 is an absolute dream. Well, we need to scale it back a little bit and say, hey, we still want to support you, but I think you need to bring something. You need to also be willing to go out and put a little hustle yourself, right? So it's not just another district event, right? So personally, I would like to split the difference with their losses, because they lost about $42,000 last year, and see an increase in our cast donation, but they not full.
Okay, Councilor Cutter.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Yeah, I totally support Chris Best, but I believe last year we gave $90,000 in cash. So instead of the in kind, they actually got that in cash. So $40,000 in kind, and then there was $50,000 added to it. So $90,000 in cash, and they lost $41,000 or $42,000. They're asking for $150,000 this year. That's $60,000 more than last year. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not an important festival for the community of Tumber, but to me, when we're going to spend that kind of money, we need to get a buy-in from the residents. I was in and talked to Mr. Wall today. You look at it, we pay taxes, and I can use the dump, I can use recycle. I pay taxes, but then I have to pay again for the Grizz Festival for a resident. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but maybe there needs to be something there if you are a resident. Battle of the Bands is usually supported by Tumber Ridge, fairly heavy. To me, the attendance has been down for the last 3 years, if not 4. Last year, I think they took a huge hit, and it says in their letter in regards to Alabama. So to me, we need to do something regionally, see if we get regional support coming out of Dawes Creek, not to book on that weekend, but I think Dawes Creek's kind of event center is also a business, and they're there to make money. I think that definitely affected their numbers last year. The year before, I don't believe there was any kind of event center. I know the year before that, they had Meatloaf come in and they had to cancel Meatloaf because they didn't sell enough tickets. So I think there's maybe something there. I know I talked to Mr. Wall again today. The same thing there about maybe scaling it back, but maybe looking more district involvement, like Council Nober is saying. But scaling it back to whether it's a one-day event or some, and the district takes more lead on it, and having their board still be there to help band selections, stuff like that, but smaller bands, local bands. I just know if it's it's a non-for-profit, but they're still there in a business. And I believe they're only carrying over 27 Gs going into 2018 or 2019.
I agree with you. I mean, and I agree with Councillor Norbury. It is an important function for District of Tumble Ridge. It's been going on for 17 years. It's one of the longest outdoor festivals going, and it's made a name for itself. The brand of Grizz. Like I said to begin with, I don't understand how you can run an event to lose money every year. Something needs to change there. So I would like to possibly sit down with TRDA Society, Mayor and Council, and kind of have a roundtable discussion about their vision and see scale of the event has gotten to a certain point, and I think they still want to continue to build that, but in order to do that, it's going to take district money to do that. And basically, I'm here tonight to ask council if they're willing to support at that level. Councilor.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with what all of you have said so far, and I think in the beginning, I think it was more family orientated, and it seems to have gotten away from that, and like, I think scaling down the bands is probably one of the things you can do, and maybe go to 2 days, but I think that family thing would bring people back. I know they have kids things, but you need to involve not just, I mean, you can have the kids, you gotta put them on a jumping, like the one of those bouncy castles. But you need to get the parents involved as well so they can do things together. And I think that would bring more people in than just having, okay, I can drop my kid off here, go have a beer, and then, you know, I don't think that's what it should be intended for. And so, yeah, I fully agree. I think 150,000 is a lot of coin, and especially because it has lost money for the last few years. So, yeah, I mean, it would be nice to find a solution.
Together, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we should be able to come up with something that will work, at least give it a shot. I mean, you know, you gotta try something.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like the fact that district is or to your suggestion of the district kind of moving into a kind of a structured, not necessarily takeover, but more district-led run events. Like I don't agree with that. I think TRD Society is fully capable of running this event on their own, but I think the vision of GrisFest needs to change. Councilor.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Yeah, you know, it's been a struggle for sure from day one when you've been part of it for like the 16 years, trying to figure out what is it, you know. I mean, everybody's going in with good intentions and that, and you know, when it started out as Grizzly Valley Days, which was a district event, and then somehow and just the way it grew, all of a sudden the district wanted to pull apart and make this, you know, a standalone. And I think last year it was just proven that, you know, you got a bunch of volunteers that just, you know, they try to get it together to set up and take down. That's just I think it proved to be too hard of a task. Volunteers, it's hard to get volunteers now. We're losing our volunteers. It's like, how do we, you know, we got to rebuild from the bottom up. And you know, I think the board itself is more than willing to try anything and everything to make it happen, because I think having that weekend as Tumblr's weekend, whether it's GrisFest or whatever, can evolve from GrisFest again if we need a change. I think that weekend is important. So I think what we need to do as the council is like, what can we do? Are we going to put money aside to see the development of something? Where do we, you know, I always say, as soon as GrisFest doesn't happen that one weekend, we will lose anybody that's coming in from out of town. And we do get a lot. We still get it. I would roughly say close to about 800 people who always come that weekend. And they just like to come, and they're not even really fussy about the music anymore. Buying music is very tough. We kind of, and last year Brett Michaels, you know, you can't announce a certain time, and if had anybody known that Alabama was coming, that would have been a whole different, you know, that was the last minute. That's enough. I mean, it's been floods, fires, and then Alabama. I think you can always count that. You always have to keep an account that with the Encana Event Center. They're a business. They're gonna if they've got a chance to put somebody through that center, I can't really see them saying, "Oh no, we're gonna leave your weekend." It would be great if they did. And that's another thing, is that they do our ticketing for us. So that was a hit too. You know, I've talked to the board and you know, the ATV club for the last few years has been trying to set up this ATV jamboree. It'd be a great time to have it. When the ball tournaments, when the Fall Fair came and said they were going to have the slow pitch tournament at Fall Fair, when we were out at the Chetwynd trade shows, everybody from Chetwynd's going, "Why aren't you having your ball tournaments at GrisFest anymore?" It's like, we'd love to, but again, you got you got a group putting on that. There's not a whole lot of people to run ball tournaments and set everything up, but that is where it should be. The ball tournament should be on Gristfest weekend like it used to be. And then it starts with the camping. So it's just of how things have changed, where you used to be able to have a camp where if you're at a music festival, your music festival ends at possibly 10, 11 at night. You go back to your campground. You want to sit in your campground, and it doesn't mean it has to be a rip-roaring party, but you can't be expected to be quiet at 10 o'clock. There has to be a little bit of a leeway for the people coming in to enjoy a festival. You look at any outdoor festivals, quiet time isn't at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. There has to be some leeway on that weekend. So, I see it down the road, if we could have a permanent area for Gristfest, and for, not just for Gristfest, for any other group that wants to use it, a fenced-in area where you can cut your costs, where you can maybe down the road have a amphitheater or a stage that people can use, where your setup costs are going down, your security costs would go down a little bit different, but I think it's definitely something that we should look at and try to improve on, rather, 150 might be high. But if we start getting better and finding out what it is that we can offer the tourists that are coming in, because people are still wanting to come here, I think it's something to look at. And unfortunately for this year, for Gristfest, if that's gonna go, they need to have money up front, probably before grant and aid, because bands, you have to start booking those pretty soon. Like now, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. They are behind the eight ball, and they are behind. I just personally think that Gristfest has grown to a point where, like you said, our volunteer base can't support it, unfortunately. So, yeah, Councilor McKinsey.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Joanne brought up actually a really good point, and I didn't really think about it before, but they do spend a lot of money every year on porta potties, fencing, stuff like that. Instead of us fronting them $150,000, maybe we can come up with an idea of maybe $40,000, but we'll put that $100,000 into a venue or an area that we can maybe put in permanent washrooms, fully fenced off area, and maybe a grandstand stage or a stage of some sort that can be used year round. So it's not just 1 week of the year, and then anybody else can bring it and use it as well. So it's just more of a dual purpose idea, because that would help change their business model as well, because I don't know if it's imperative that it's an outdoor event, but I know in previous years they've had low numbers because of terrible weather and the time of year or whatever, right? So we do have other areas in our town, in our district, that we could utilize, like during the summer if there is bad weather or whatever. So
I agree. I think a fairground is definitely the right move at some point. It's a permanent location, and that's really what all of our nonprofit groups are looking for, is some certainty, instead of this year by year looking at, can we go to the district, are we going to be able to operate next year? The uncertainty is not good for anybody. Councilor Majinski.
thank you, Mayor Bertrand. The other thing is, I know they've struggled with storage. So that could probably be incorporated in a large area as well, and be used for other user groups as well. And just have sea cans lined up or whatever, and then padlocked and fenced off separately. But then it's easy access if you drive in and out once the fairgrounds are closed off or whatever. So it could be used as another extra purpose there as well, instead of just as a fairgrounds, and it could be storage as well.
I agree. The fairgrounds, in my opinion, is possibly 2 years away though. I think we need to really decide, are we willing to make Gristfest work next year? And we don't have to decide on the 150 grand tonight, but realistically we need to, as a group, decide, are we willing to support this function or this event? And we really got to think about, are the taxpayers willing to do that as well? Councillor Howe.
At $150,000 for a weekend for a party? Absolutely not. I'm not in support of Gristfest as heavily as the rest of you guys are, we're actually a family that leaves Tumbler Ridge when Grizzfest goes. We don't like the hubbub around it. We don't like the stuff that has been associated with the town, and so we choose to leave Grizzfest. Occasionally, my family may go in to watch a show or a event, and unfortunately, you have to buy a ticket for the entire day to go watch one show. So I sit on the other side of the fence where I don't think it's the best thing for Tumbler Ridge. I don't think it's the best use of our money. $150,000, there's absolutely no way you'd ever be able to sell me on $150,000. Maybe if you brought in AC/DC and Metallica and Kiss all at the same time, you might get it. But to me, this is a stretch, man. I mean, $100,000 is a stretch for a weekend. You'd never do this at $100,000 for every weekend in Tumbler Ridge. So why is one weekend different? If it's a benefit for the community, it should be a benefit that you could put in every weekend and see real benefit out of it. But when you're talking you're losing $40,000, I mean, the whole intention last year of giving them the in-kind money and their original cash that they always got was so that they could find areas to save money. It was not, it was supposed to be take the liability off the district. We'll give you guys the cash. You guys can find creative ways to do it with non-union employees. That was the thought behind it. And it didn't turn out good. It went the other way. It looks like to me, it looks like they lost a lot more money than when the district did it. So to me, I think the fact that the volunteers cost us more and more and more every year. I think it really, if it's going to continue, it needs to get back on its own 2 feet. Last year, I don't remember the exact number, but I think the subsidy per ticket that we supplied as taxpayers was $100 per ticket, somewhere in that range. I don't know if Mr. Wall remembers that number, but there was a report that came out in front of us that said to us the amount of money that the taxpayers of Tumbler Ridge pay per ticket for whoever goes to it, not people from Tumbler Ridge, anybody who travels here, we subsidize that to the tune of $100 per ticket. To me, it's well gone beyond what it was supposed to do here. You know, the town of Tumbler Ridge never got to 5,000 people. We can't sustain something that's as large as what it is, and the volunteer group is not going to get any bigger. You know, if anything, they're all getting smaller. And we're getting more and more groups that want to do things that draw volunteers out. We've seen that with the implementation of the fall fair. So the fall fair came on, and that became a bit of a contentious issue last council, where folks were saying, well, we can't have all these little things going and support all these things. But when you're supporting the fall fair to a tune of whatever it was a small amount, and they brought in a lot of people and a lot of vendors and did a lot of stuff with a very small amount of money. That to me is a way better investment in our tax dollars than it is for one weekend party. My take on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's kind of lost its focus as far as a benefit to the residents of Tumbler Ridge. In my opinion, it's more of a benefit to the region. We definitely have a majority of people coming to Grizzfest that are not from town, and it's gotten to a point where I think it's too big to be able to support, and I think the focus of Grizzfest needs to change. Councilor Mowbray.
I thought you had a little more there. Okay. Yeah. No. I agree that the amount that they're asking for is a lot, and the amount that they asked for last year was a lot. But my thoughts would be is that this is something that's still in its age of infancy, right? Last year, having Alabama they thought was a big hit to their ticket sales. You know, I'm willing to think let's try and see. I would like to try and see this get to that point to where we can have the fairground location and give them another chance, right? Like, I think the idea was that they can be self-sustaining points, so I'd like to support them to see them through to that point where they can fine-tune how much they're asking for, what bands they're looking at. Because I mean, I have to hope as a board, they have the same balance sheet that we do. They look at, we spent $130,000 on bands. We promoted promoted Grizzfest heavily. We only made $40,000 ticket sales. That's what I saw. So hopefully they can fine-tune it. That's up to them. We need to decide what our buy-in is. And if, at that 90,000, using that number of 800 people came in, if each one of those people spent $112 in town, then then we made $90,000 for our local businesses. Like, I understand that, yeah, we want to have something for our residents. I like Councillor Kakauka's idea of maybe we need to negotiate how can we have an added benefit for our residents, because asking our residents for $100,000 for one weekend, is a tough thing to do, because not everyone wants to attend. But if we go on behalf, our local businesses can be stronger. Like the tourism promotion of Tumbler Ridge. I think I'd like to. Maybe this is a hiccup, and then they have to come back every year. It's not like we're saying here, this is your line item, But if this is a constant, if this is a trend that happens, then absolutely we need to be the adult and say, hey guys, you've tried, it's just not working, so we're gonna scale back, But at this time, I think we're in infancy. They still need our support.
I disagree on the infancy part. I do agree that they're in a transition part as far as who's leading the charge now, and we did kind of break away, and the people that are leading the charge now did have a very high learning curve last year. I do have full confidence in the people that are leading the charge to be able to put on a great event. But I disagree that we're in infancy. I do think that we have an opportunity to build through that week between Grizzfest and Emperor's Challenge. But I just think the scale of Grizzfest has gotten to a point where we can't really control it anymore. I mean, $40,000 loss is a huge loss. And yeah, I mean, that could be growing pains. I guarantee that's growing pains, because it's grown to a point where we can't sustain it anymore. So I think the vision needs to change there myself. I did speak to Terry today about if the district was to invest that kind of money into this, what kind of benefit to the residents would there be? Can we offer free tickets to the residents? And she had a good point there, that we do offer free tickets to the residents to try and get the volunteer base. And I've taken advantage of it myself. I volunteered both days to get a free ticket. And it was a fantastic benefit, really. And it was nothing to volunteer 4 hours a day. But if you go ahead and give free tickets to the residents.
I think this really has to be a we. I think it's too much to put that event, like the event, the way it has progressed has a lot to do with just how the town kind of started, or the district, how we started separating it, and how it went from a district event and then not. So in the building stages, I mean, you look at their asset list, it's gotten to the point where we are a full-blown music company to some extent. And yeah, we did kind of lose that family portion of it, because then we lost all the people that wanted to volunteer and do the family side of things. They didn't show up anymore. Kids events are expensive to put on, and families want everything for free. So in the real world, and when we said, when we put that out, we gave them in kind so that they could get it for cheaper, couldn't find it for cheaper. It was hard to find anybody who had that kind of equipment ready. Like, the district was always good because that equipment was here. They had a heck of a time trying to find people to do the stuff, which we thought would be easy. It wasn't easy. So I think, it would be good to have the group come in and sit down and talk. That could even be something that we bring up at a tourism action committee, is getting buy-ins from all the other groups in town. Is that if this is important, we want to keep this weekend, we want to build between here and there with the Emperor's Challenge, then we have to get together. We have to have visioning sessions. It could be even something that we add to a new tourism plan, is how we're going to go forward, because it does need to kind of change into something else, or add something else, or has to have something new into it, because just the music alone isn't enough.
I agree. Councillor Howell.
So I'm not at all interested in the district getting involved in Grizzfest anymore. We were trying to make strides to get out of Grizzfest for reasons that I don't think I can discuss right now. But we are trying to get the district to separate from Grizzfest. That was what our intention was. Again, it's $100,000 spend we're talking about here for one weekend. It's $100,000 plus staff time. If we go back to talking about, you know, let's get this, Joanne had some ideas, the tourism action committee, and let's get it on this and start talking about this. Again, we start talking about the amount of staff time that goes into this to try to put this event off for one weekend. To me, I think it just needs a dial back. It needs that group. Unfortunately, it's them, it's not us. It's that group needs to look at it and say, how can we dial this back and come into the district of Tumble Ridge with a reasonable request, with a scaled back or dialed back amount. You know, if they did one night and only lost $20,000, you know, of the district money given into them, that's a little easier to handle, right? To me, that's where I'm at on this. Like, and to say, oh, we need to give them another year and they need to try again, and you know, it was because of Alabama was here. Well, yeah, Alabama was here, but we also had a massive construction project on the go in Tumble Ridge at the time that filled up all of our campgrounds. The Moose Lake project was on the go, and there was construction workers all over this town. You know, those are guys that go to those events. You know, there was also the opening of 3 new mines right around the same time that this event was going off, right? We're bringing more and more people into town. Numbers in town are going up, yet the numbers for the event went down. You know, there aren't people showing up for the event anymore. And like I say, it's just, to me, it's overshot where it wanted to go, and that's all.
Councilor Halka.
Yeah, just mention something. I was not blaming it on Alabama or the Canada Event Center. They've all started up a new music festival in Prince George. Right, so I know they're not getting the numbers from there either. And I mean, it's not just this year that's declining numbers. It's 3 years it's been declining. Floods, fires, you can put it on all that. But I totally agree. I think that the group itself needs to relook at it. I mean, I fully support Grizzfest as a resident and an individual, but 150 G's coming from taxpayers is a bit much. My thoughts.
Councilor Wojcicki.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I'll just say one last thing. Just in vendors alone, there's over $40,000 in just fees. So they obviously made some money there, and that's just for them to get here. And then, so they made money for sure. So
What page
For-
on that, there's 40,000.
total them all up, vendor fees all the way down,
Yeah, what page those are?
40. So if you were to say to scale back and restructure, that would be probably a hot one there. Start on. We, you know, like, sure, we do need some vendors in town, but those are all out of town vendors, right? So that's a lot of money going out of town, right off the top.
So you said 40,000?
Yeah. Just tally them all up together. Starting on 40, the backside 41 and 40.
Okay, I'll get as a clarification. I see it as 38.75, 4 Gs.
That's the.
Each one, right?
No, the amount is the that's how much they paid.
That's what they
What they pay per vendor, no?
That's what the vendor pays the society.
That's what they pay, and then what do they pay to come in for
They
that?
pay to
So
come in.
that's what they made is 40,000.
No, $125, $250,
Okay.
$300, so it's 3,875.
375 is what they made.
That's what they made off having vendors come in on the grounds. To bring a
Right.
truck on.
What's the balance there on the?
Councilor Majinski, the right hand is the balance, it's an accruing total, so every time you go down, it's adding that
Oh.
previous number, so it's an
Okay.
addition. And that's where you're.
Oh, sorry. Oh, never mind, disregard that.
So I think we've come to the conclusion that we're all on the same page here. I think, does everyone agree that a sit down with TRB society would be beneficial? Councilor Kirby,
Yes, I think so.
can we, Councilor Norbury?
Just so they know what they're coming into, maybe we can, with that sit down, can we ask them to come up with a few different pricing models for us? At different levels of district buy-in. Does anyone think that might be a good idea? Or should we just go in blind, let's have a discussion? Or maybe bring up or have something with them, topic items, so that we can have like a guided discussion almost, you know, agenda.
Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I think they should have an idea because there's no way I'm gonna agree to $150,000. Not a chance.
Okay. So Mr. Wall, can you organize, are we allowed to have a round table with this group as council,
In a council meeting with them as a delegation.
as a delegation? Okay, I know they're welcome, or they have welcomed the idea to come in as a delegation, and I think we need to do that as soon as possible. Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that it's gotten to a point where it's not feasible for the district to support that amount. It's gotten to a point where it's too big for us to support one weekend of the year. Especially with all the negative over the last 17 years that it's happened. The taxpayers, the residents of Tumbler Ridge just aren't willing to support it, let alone just buy a ticket. So I'd like to direct staff to ask Grisfest TRD Society to come in as a delegation as soon as possible.
To a regular meeting or a P&P or a special meeting?
To a regular meeting, yeah.
Okay.
And maybe, does everyone agree that we should ask for some alternate funding opportunities? Councilor Majinski?
Is it necessary to set up a meeting for that, or could we send out a letter saying, come up with maybe a new strategy and a different request, instead of us having to rehash this out again and make a decision later on? Is that, because we can just say no, maybe find an alternate solution or alternate price they would like to, and say what they're gonna use it for, maybe, how they expect to come out of the negative, just so that we're not, because it'll be a couple more meetings for sure by the time we have a final price set.
Yeah, that's the biggest hiccup right now is they need some kind of certainty on yes or no, and so they can start preparing for next year. Like Councilor Kirk said, they're already behind on bookings. So, but I really think that we as council need to have this vision discussion with them, because I think in their eyes they have this vision of Grisfest to where it has become. I think, from what I understand, listening to everybody, is our vision is a little different to probably half the scale, or even more of a localized venue. So, yeah, let's bring them in as a delegation and see if they can come up with some other type of funding model or vision for the event. Does everyone agree with that?
I do.
Your worship, so are we directing? Pardon?
That's $1.
Oh, sorry. Mayor Bertrand, are we requesting they come in as a delegation to inform them that council wants them to reduce the amount requested, or are we asking them to come up with that amended amount and then come to council?
Councilors? Councilor.
Yeah, I'll just speak for myself, but I know I'm not in favor of $150,000. We gave them $90,000 last year and they lost $42,000. So to me, if they're looking for funds from the district of Tumbler, to me, they need to come in here with a plan that makes sense for myself as council. So to me, it should be a benefit to them to figure out what they can do different. Whether it's a one-day event or whatever, like again, I will say it, I had a meeting with Mr. Wall today, and I like his concept of in the district being involved, of doing something a little different for the same well, a lot less than our discussion. I think that should be looked at by staff as well. In regards to the conversation myself and Mr. Wall had, the district being involved and scaling the event back. Like they could take and be, I mean, like he said, like they could run the event, or we talked about, he didn't really say it, and TRD Society could still be involved on that side of the district. Help pick the bands or whatever, but more district involvement, and would come down in price, whether it's local bands, we're not bringing in big names, maybe no beer gardens, I don't know. Like, I think there's other ways of looking at it. $150,000 is way too cheap.
Councillor Howell.
How do we have this discussion in closed? Is there any way we can get this to close with the meeting tonight? There's a portion of this that we are not allowed to talk about. And I feel, maybe I'm wrong, but I think there's a portion that needs to be discussed and closed.
So if you're talking about the items that brought along the liability in the first place,
Yes.
those have all been resolved and
Open for discussion?
yeah,
Let her rip.
it's all been in the courts and
Okay.
settled and yeah.
So we had
Councillor Howell.
so I don't know if you all know this, but we had a assault, I think it was, or something, over in the RV park. It had nothing to do with the district of Tumbler Ridge, the way I understand it. We've had to settle it, or they had to settle it, or something happened along those lines. And it opened up all of our eyes to the fact that the district of Tumbler Ridge is liable for anything that occurs in and around the community. Even if we had nothing to do with it, it's the fact that we bring all these people in. We don't have adequate policing, we don't have adequate fire, we don't have adequate ambulance service, we don't have adequate doctors. And we bring all these people into our community and don't address any of those social issues, and then allow this event to go off, and somebody gets hurt, it comes back on us for the liability. We, as the district of Tumbler Ridge, can be sued for this event. That, to me, was the concern of why we separate. And so where Mr. Prokauka, or Councilor Prokauka may have had some discussions with Mr. Wall today that I'm not privy to, and I don't know what you guys talked about. I don't know what has changed that you guys can fill us in on, that we can get away from that liability now. But don't forget, this same council that we're talking to right now also didn't want to put up tire chain signs to protect our $7 million investment because we were concerned about liability issues. Right? It's the same thing. This is an actual court case that hit us. It was there for something that was unrelated to what we did. So the liability issue needs to be thought through here.
Councillor Overy.
Do we know what the repercussions of the district was as a result of that fight? Did the district have to pay out a settlement?
I don't exactly know.
The district didn't settle, the insurance agency for the TRD Society did.
So it didn't affect the district whatsoever, it's just the TRD societies. Which, is that fair to say?
I would assume, yeah. But that could have gone a totally different way. They settled, right? If we didn't settle, if there wasn't a settlement, we were in a very tight spot. I don't have all the particulars on it. I just remember that at the time, we were very, very concerned that the district of Tumbler Ridge could be sued for what had happened on our property. Even though it wasn't us, it wasn't our fault, that happened, so we thought. But we should maybe have that rehash as well. We need to look at that. If we're ever gonna go down this road, we're gonna get back in bed with the TRD Society. We need to have this discussion and have the facts on it more.
I think it needs to be scaled back. Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I think we did have adequate, I think we've always had adequate policing, fire, and you know, it's the same risk. You got hikers in the community. Those are just the things that go with that. And yes, a music event is a little different, but we had the insurance in place, and that, to me, that, you know, not getting into it, that claim was, it was, honestly, it wasn't even on Grizzfest grounds, had nothing to do with Grizzfest either, and somehow that group ended up holding the bag. So, you know, it's just, I would definitely never stop any kind of event on the fear of that. If you've got your insurances in place, you've got your policing in place, good. Because if you want to put any event on, you can have the same kind of thing down there, change it into a family event, and something could go wrong. You know, I wouldn't ever, exactly.
Councilor,
And I think that's why it's important that these things be done through not directly the district, you know, because if it's done through the TR Day Society, you know, as this this incident showed, is that it reflected on that society rather than the district directly, and that's the great reason why we can use nonprofit. Well, why nonprofits can be the ones spearheading this, because the liability doesn't fall directly on us; it falls on them. But yeah, I think the task at hand was we were talking about what we want TR Day Society to come back with, right? So, in their invitation.
yeah, so as a delegation, I think we need to look at other funding options, other amounts, definitely lower.
So no,
Councilor,
so they know what they're coming into. You know, come up with some other options. How can fine tune it a little bit.
is everyone in agreement with that? Mr. Wall, did you get enough direction there?
So what I heard was that we will request the TR Day Society come back to council with a smaller event or a cheaper event, and then they'll come back to council with that.
Okay, moving on to 6.8, Tumbler Ridge Museum Foundation, 2019 operations. Correspondence from the TRMF dated November 29th, 2018 regarding council's request for financial information regarding museum operations for 2019. Recommendation, please. Councilor Kalka.
Move for the discussion.
Second. Councilor Lehman. For discussion. Councilor Kalka.
Yeah, I'll start off. So, yeah, I've been chatting with the museum there, being the liaison. So I guess this came back from the previous council asking for cost to keep their specimens safe until we could decide whether or not funding options for 2019. So I guess just to hear from council in regards to a couple options we can look at discussing if we're going to fund them for 2019 and what level. And if that's the case, we could do a quarter payment after we discuss that and take it to a regular meeting. Or we could look at an amount to get them until April. If that is something this council wants to do to protect the houses. Because they have funding to last until about mid-January is my understanding. So, curious, I guess.
So just going over the budget for keeping the Dinosaur Discovery Gallery going. Total expenses was $86,095, and that's for a third of the year. So timesing that by 3 is $258,285. So that's $58,000 more the district has contributed in the past. So I'm not really sure if these budgets are what the previous council has asked for. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the motion that was made with the previous council was to come up with some numbers to keep the lights on, keep the fossils protected, basic expenses to keep the doors open. I kind of see this budget as what they would like instead of what the minimum is. Any other comments? Councilor Kalka?
So on their budget that they did supply the district, that's for the museum. The numbers there, just so people are aware, some of this stuff is normally covered through the PRD funding, which they haven't heard. So this was one of the concepts coming from the museum that they were scared to submit this early is what I've heard from the board, because they'll go after the PRD to fund the vanitology work and stuff like that. So that wage is normally tagged on to the PRD funding. So that was why one of the reasons they say it was late coming back, because they weren't sure about, they called it like some double dipping or whatever. But just to turn your eyes to the page that Mr. Wallace supplied in a staff report. So page 59 to 59 is some numbers Mr. Wallace put together from the direction we gave him at the last council meeting. Now, am I allowed to say the wage that I was told today, Mr. Wallace?
From the master plan?
The master plan, but not the master plan, what I heard today, of what it's being increased to.
It would be the TRMS direction, not
Okay,
mine.
well, I'm not gonna say that number then. Just not sure if it's open knowledge. Are you aware of it? You said it before? Okay, I'm not sure. So in the master plan, it's averaged at 64,000 for this position. So Mr. Wall has taken that and divided it quarterly. At first, the museum had supplied it as a third, so 1/3 of the year instead of by the quarter, because she thought that she had to run it until our budget came out. But that's not correct. I guess once we decide something, the funds can actually be released before May on their quarterly segments. So,
For apples to apples comparison on the full staffing, minimal staffing, the 1 quarter master plan comes out to 45,945 to go with the full 4 months. So that bottom total expenses on the third column on page 59, for the 4-month amount, it would be 45,945
Instead of 35.
instead of the 35. Which is just $4,000 less than council's normal contribution on a quarterly basis.
so when so the idea there, I mean, again, I'd like to hear what council's thoughts are, discussing in regards to if we're gonna fund them in 2019, and if we are, kind of what we're looking at, and then if we're willing to release core of that payment to cover this, or in 2018, we only contributed $50,000 to the museum to open it for 4 months. That was direction from previous council. So one thing I'd had discussions with Teresa is if we were able to cover from January into the next budget year, they would be on our budget term after that. Previous council always talked about why didn't they hold back funds to keep them running for 4 months until we dealt with our budgets. It's their budgets are 4 months earlier than our, and Council Kirby brought the same comments forward. So I guess I'm curious to see what the rest of council thinks. Speak to some questions that we have.
Councillor Howell.
So my take on the museum at this point, based on the results of the community survey and my discussions with Teresa and from what I see going on up there, I think we've reached a point where we give them the $200,000 that they ask for every year. And I think that we go in and ask them for a few specific things that you guys want to see as a council, and you move on from it. And we stop wasting staff time and belaboring the facts on it and continue on. We just had a debate over $150,000 for a weekend for Grizzfest. And, $90,000 sure sounds like it's being kicked around like that's what we give Grizzfest for one weekend. This is $200,000 for an entire year. That's what they're asking for. And we've asked them, if we're going to give you the $200,000, we want child and family things, changed or whatever. And to me, I've said it since day one, I'd like to see cast models of dinosaurs. I'd like to see, whether they're scientifically, autonomically correct or not, I don't care. I'd like to see 2 of them every year. That's what I want to see for the museum. And give them the money, let it move on, and stop wasting staff time with it, and let's see what happens with it. Give it another term. And see if they can get the money from the PRRD. Because if they don't get that money, they're in big trouble anyway. So that's my take on it. Move on and look at bigger and better things for Tumbler Ridge than continuously wasting the time with the museum.
That's kind of where the task force or the museum development task force is really going to play a part in shaping what the residents of Tumbler Ridge have asked for. And as far as what this council wants to see at the museum, I think that's getting to a point of micromanaging, and that's really not our vision. Our vision is more of on a bigger scale. So I totally respect that you would like to see those attractions as a resident, but as a council, I don't think we need to get into those smaller details as far
Fair enough.
as far as attractions go. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you. So I'm for me, what we've given to the museum in the past has been adequate to do what they've been doing, right? We want increased services. I think come with that, two things need to happen. I believe that the museum needs to, again, rework their financials a little bit. I also think we need to put the money where our mouth is. And when we say we want more, we need to give more. And what they're saying here with the $86,000 for a third of the year is saying that if we need $256,000. Any discussions with the museum, I don't think it's a waste of staff time. The museum is something that makes Tumbler Ridge unique, and it is something that we can really be a major draw to our community, because it's something that not many people have. But I think for us, we want to move forward. We don't want to look at the past, but also I think we still need to develop some trust in saying that yes, this is taxpayers' dollars. Let's work towards the amazing museum that we can have, but in stages, right? So right now, 86.95 would get them $256,000 a year, and I believe to develop. I believe I was reading earlier, they had $14,000 for a 4-month period for a preparatory technician that they didn't add in, which that's fine, but we need to say it's our job to say at what level do we want to fund the museum. Previously, it's been 200, and this is what they've given us for 200. I'd like to see what they can give us for 250, and let's work with it, see what they can do, and if they still need more, we'll have the discussion later. But
I just wanted to let council know, I'm not sure if you had a chance to check your email, but the province has said that they plan on releasing the museum report from Deborah Griffiths tomorrow. So council may want to wait for that report before you get really too into this. So the report might not change anything, but it was kind of meant to address this type of issue.
Councillor Kalka.
So, yeah, discussions with Tris and Councilor Norbury hit some of it. So we worked it out to be, I can't remember the number Mr. Wall came up with, but we were really close to the number. I came up to the 1/3 there to be, or the 3 month to be 47,400, and that's due to a wage increase. And then to hire, so if we're gonna pay I'm just gonna round it up, $50,000 to protect the fossils. That's somebody going in and making sure that it's the right temperature, the right moisture. Sorry, I'm not a paleontologist, so I don't know what they do. But for whatever that is, it's $50,000. And in some of their reports they'd supplied is adding two host staff. And there's some discussion in regards, instead of 2 host staff for these next 4 months, to hire 1 host staff and then 1 prep tech. So that total would change. It's about 20. We're just gonna throw numbers around it. About 27 to our budget, so their budget would be the same as ours. It works out to be that we've given them $125,000 in 2018, which we normally give $200,000. So we saved the taxpayers $75,000 in 2018 if we were to fund them $75,000 to protect the fossils and actually keep the gallery open. Because we gave them $50,000 in June. We'd be giving them, council agrees, $75,000 to keep them over until our budget discussion.
Councillor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. What if we, this is just my idea, gave them their total expenses of $86,000 upfront and done. Then after that, it's $40,000 quarterly. So then going forward, be $160 a year for following years after this upfront cost of this first quarter. Would that be something out of range or out of realm, or that is quite a bit less than the talk of $256,000? But
I think, my opinion, I think if we go below the 200, we're not going to get any progression on the museum. The museum, in my opinion, is still in its infancy. It's got a phenomenal collection there. But the whole idea of a prep tech is to prep the new fossils to have new displays. So if you don't have the background work going on, you're not going to get any change to the displays. I think is the idea for the prep tech. So I'm not really into what level of funding we're looking at right now supporting that. Councilor Goodell.
So my thoughts for supporting him are somewhat like Councillor Howe, and I think we need to wait for them to come forward. I know they're gonna be filling out a fee for service or a grant and aid policy. They are looking for a 1-year commitment this year until they can do some of the stuff they are doing behind the scenes. General manager, they're looking at hiring a general manager, and some of this process coming from David Griffin. If we see the report tomorrow, obviously there's some insight into that as well. So they're actually, now this talk with Teresa. They're looking for 1 year, so I'm not just talking about so I'm talking besides protecting the fossils until our budget. So I think whatever our funding amount is for 2019, I think we wait for the museum to come forward for that, which they will be. So I think, I'm gonna support the museum because that's how the voters voted. Like that's not even a question in my mind, but the amount's left up to this council. We can debate that when they come forward and what they're looking for, and their report on why they're looking for that amount. That's just my belief. What I'm hoping is I can get council support. I mean, I don't know, we don't have to pick a number here, we can debate that on a council meeting where we can actually make a decision. But like I said, they've supplied a sheet to Mr. Wall, they supplied a sheet to staff. We asked Mr. Wall to go down and break through what he could find out. So he's taken their,
Master plan.
their master plan, and that's how he came with his numbers. Again, I talked to Teresa this morning, as I did last week, and I'm just saying there is a bit on the numbers. I'm not saying that Mr. Wall is wrong at all, and we talked about they put in for 1/3, he did a quarter because I personally didn't realize the payment could come out in April after we discussed this on the grant aid or fee for service. So approximately it's 47,400 is what I come up with. What'd you come up with? 45?
45,945. But that was on my phone as we were talking.
I know, and I'm not holding you to the wall, and that's what I say. So we're $2,000 in the difference. Talking with Teresa to hit the 47,400. I'm just gonna say $50,000. That protects the fossils. That's the power, the heat. There's some expenses that only get paid once a year, and that's their accounting and legal. It's not, they don't pay it monthly. They pay it all at one time. So that would cover, to me, their running expenses for their building and their curator and whatever she's going to be doing to protect the fossils. In discussion with their board, I just, I put it out there because, to me, if we're going to spend $50,000, I'm not saying $25,000, we need to give them to open up the gallery. But that was one of the goals from the council previous, was to get the gallery open through the summer. And I'm not saying $25,000 is the right number, because we can also say to them that, we'd be happier to have it open on Saturdays and Sundays only, until we deal with funding. I don't want to micromanage another thing. I think we get into that not only with organizations, but I know I personally have done that with staff. So I'm wondering what kind of support or what opinion is from the rest of council on a $75,000 amount from January till May. That's my question. 4 months. That keeps the 9-story gallery open. I'm assuming 5 days a week, whatever their schedule is. So one host and one prep tech, which would be prepping to be prepared for spring. For when they have tours looking to be booked already for May and June with schools. No prep tech, obviously, some of that work can't happen. So We can discuss that.
Councillor Lehman.
Mayor Bertrand, I'm just a little bit curious as to, I mean, why do they need a manager? And I can see, okay, a prep tech, but then what does the curator do? And I went into Wembley and talked to them about what they do. And they have people working that are helping they don't actually have a paleontologist, they have a paleontologist that is working on his degree. They don't have an actual paleontologist. But when I told them that we had two, their eyes got about this big. So I'm just wondering, like, because I think I have apparently nothing against giving money to the museum. Although, to be honest, most of the people that I've talked to, and that's without a lie, are not in favor of giving the money to the museum, even though that opinion poll says that, yeah, we'll give money to the museum, but we'll give money to other organizations as well, which is kind of I think it was an odd way of putting it, but irregardless, I think give them the money, but there's got to be accountability. And, you know, like if you're going to hire a general manager, then so.
I think the general manager is really to bring the organization to a point of more professionalism as far as organization goes. They have two organizations underneath the TRMF, right? They've got the Dinosaur Discovery Gallery and the PRPRD. So, yeah, acronyms. So I think really the point of the general manager is to bring that organization to a point of professionalism and more organization in their organization. Councillor Gow.
So just on that, in regards to general manager, that's actually one of the things that Deborah Griffin said when she was here. That was something that she pretty much said that was something that they should start on ASAP. Work on looking at a general manager for that. So I think that's why the board took, and they are. That's one of their thoughts for that board is to get a general manager hired. That's my understanding.
Okay.
Councillor Norbert.
Different sub-organizations within the organization, right? And a manager lets the professionals they take care of the administrative stuff, like creating a budget, making sure, deciding, looking at how much someone should earn for their position. They're the ones who bring them all together, because a paleontologist is going to be great at going out and finding fossils. A host will be great at greeting people, right? But neither one of those are probably really good at administrating. Like for me, in my role, I think I'm pretty good at dealing with the public and putting on programs. But, can I do all the administrative stuff in the back room? Absolutely not. And if I was asked to do that, the level of service that would be provided would be at such a lower level. So this is just someone to let people be unburdened with the administrative stuff to do what they can do great. And that's, I think, what I would like to see. I think what the TRMF wants to see is the unburdening of that administrative stuff, so that their professionals can just do what they can do great, and they can make the museum a bright spot.
Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what this report's going to have from Deborah, and I think it's going to, hopefully will kind of give us an idea where they're coming up with the manager, maybe even kind of give us some ideas on the roles and responsibilities of the different positions within the TRM and the PRC, how they kind of cross, because on one you have a curator here, and then you have a curator there. Why can't the curator from the PRC actually be the curator of the Dinosaur Discovery Gallery? It just, those kind of things. And as far as funding, I'm for funding the museum. I would like to see us take care of the utilities as a line item in our budget. I mean, it is our building. That'd be something we take right off of the plate there. I think it's about like just 37.5 was last year's, basically running like that. And then also with the Discovery Gallery, I said I kind of like the if we want to see this run, we should you know, as far as funding is look after those wages, but I'd like to look at, again, see that report first. And then instead of just lump sum of 200, I think to get the two groups working together, we have to be involved. We have to have a vision that's working together in the tourism side of things. So, you know, a lot of those suggestions about how we wanted to see child friendly, that came from some of the audits that were done through Destination BC, and it was all on how to repeat visits from your tourists. So it's working with them to give a better tourism product for the whole community, and that's something I think we have to look at it as our vision coming up in the next 4 years. Is that plan and how the museum fits into our vision of seeing Tumbler Ridge grow. So I would be more leaning to taking care of the utilities, always, that's our line item on an ongoing basis, snow removal, etc. Looking at those wages after seeing the report for the gallery hosts and say the manager, and then I'd like to make it a project-based funding where they come to us, there's upgrades or stuff or different things, something different. A different concept where we are now involved in and maybe getting into some of the decision making and getting excited about what their products are coming in, and maybe we can, work together on some, like Councillor Howe says he wants to see dinosaur figures, maybe we can, look at that. And I also think we have two paleontologists, we have two doctors. I've been told by other doctors that they have funding that they can get on their own too. I'd like to see what they can come up with because, we've been funding it, just cash, giving, and which we support the museum, the PRPRC, but I think the doctors have a way of getting some funding too, and I'd like to see how they can make that work as well.
I understand what you're saying about having those utilities as a line item. The amount that we fund is basically these minimal or necessary costs, right? So I think we need to let the TRMF stand on their own and use this budget for the necessary items for how much we fund. I really don't like the idea of council getting involved to that point of trying to help them with displays or trying to help them with ideas, because they're their own entity. They're really, we need to be able to give them an amount to cover these costs, and they need to really see the vision of the Dinosaur Discovery Gallery and PRPRC. So I think if we did get into that area, I think we're going to be going down to a path where we are going to try and micromanage that TRMF, and I think that's not really the vision of council. Councillor,
I continuously hear the word of micromanaging. It's not a necessary thing to continuously think that we're micromanaging. It's trying to get the best bang for the taxpayers' dollars, and that's our job as councillors to say, hey, you know what? We think you don't need to be open 7 days a week. Sorry if you think that's micromanaging you, but because I give you $200,000, you don't need to be open 7 days a week. You don't have enough people in there. You don't need to be open through the winter. It's our job to give those suggestions, to say, I don't think you need to be open during this time. Prove me wrong. Show me where you're wrong. And in those instances, if there are places where they can save money to then increase the family-friendly environment that the taxpayers have asked them to improve, then that's fine. But I also don't ever read the results of that survey the way Chris does, that the town wants to give them more money to increase those displays. I don't read it like that at all. I read it as if you want to continue to get the amount of funding that you won't get any now, you need to increase this side of it. That's up to them to figure out how to do it. If that means they need to decrease hours, they need to have a curator or this curator or that, I don't care how you do it. Increase this, here's the amount of money you get. This is all you get. Figure this out, right? That to me is our job as councillors, to look at the service level of what we're getting for the money we're putting into it. And I don't look at that as micromanaging at all.
no, I agree with you. I do see where a general manager is going to play a big part in that too. that's the job of the general manager, is to make the organization efficient. So that recommendation is really going to benefit that TRM.
Fair enough.
Sure.
I'm not debating that fact at all.
No, not at all. Councilor Jensen.
Thank you again, Mayor. So if we are to go ahead and give them funding until April, will they have a general manager in place by then hopefully, or will that be after the fact? Because then they could probably come up with a recommendation for how much they were hoping to see, because they're gonna have the whole scope of it once they're involved and do the research on what they need for money throughout the year. So they might have a better breakdown of it, and they might have a totally different number. So for us to be going back and forth on, like, because I put out the number 40,000, I could do lunch. It might be on or close, but that's up for them to decide down the road. But if we have them jumpstart up until then, have a general manager in there, get the recommendations in, and see what happens from there, is that an okay thing to do? Like, wait until then to, and then see what they have to offer?
Yeah, I think you're.
Yeah, Councilor Majinsky, I think you brought up a good point to remember in that. Moving forward, these breakdowns don't really have a manager in there, so like these numbers they're going to come back with could be different, right? I think looking at what Councilor Kukalka is asking us is that to get them to our funding season, you know, he believes that $75,000 roughly is what's needed, and then they're going to have to come back and come up with different numbers. So I think as a liaison, and if we need to go a little lower at 75 versus the 86, you know, I think we should do that so they can come up with a budget that would include that would reflect the recommendations made by this house. I think it's there. This might not be for sure.
Councilor Kaka.
Yeah, so I just know, like, so I've asked them to talk with Councilor this question. So to me, I think you're gonna see them come in January with their grant aid or fee for service, and they're gonna be coming in and asking for $200,000. I think they're working on hiring a general manager, and my understanding there will be is there may be only one position available for a doctor. That's my understanding. So, you know, I think obviously this report's coming along. Mr. Walls said that tonight. I've seen the email. I mean, I'm not even saying, obviously we can't approve the funds at this meeting anyways. So it can be debated again on Monday's night's meeting that, you know, we get this report and maybe, who knows what's in it. But this is the numbers when I talked with the museum at the meeting, and they supplied the sheet, and I forwarded it on to Mr. Wall because I thought she'd forwarded it on, and my understanding she hadn't. The 86, there's some numbers there that didn't jive, and we'll move things around, and that's my understanding is from Sharissa. It's about 74,400 is kind of what I've rounded some numbers. That's why I've said 75,000. I mean, there's something I might have missed, but I've just rounded numbers up off the sheet. Just do my own calculations via my phone too, so I could be off. But I think if we discuss that, and if that's something council is in favor of, that brings them till May. Right, that runs them right to the end of April. And then they start within our financial budget. So now next year they won't be coming in and saying, you know, oh, geez, we didn't hold any money back, you know, whatever happens. It happens every year, they don't hold money back, and I'm not disking the museum, but Councilor Kirby can admit to it. It's every year they come in. I talked to her at the meetings. This will put them within our budget now. They won't have to be a holdback. It should line in now. We shouldn't have to worry about trying to do a prepayment to hold them off for 4 months until we can decide if we're going to go 200,000 or 180 or 150. They're within our budget, so they'll have to work with that. Whatever number the council decides in the previous years.
The recommendations will probably help us with that as well. Okay, Mr. Wall.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So I think council's got just a couple questions in front of you here. The first is, do you want in this meeting to recommend a dollar amount to decide at an upcoming meeting? That's one of the decisions that needs to be made. The next one is similar to that. Do you want to wait for the Deborah Griffiths report to come out before you decide on that dollar amount on what you want to fund the museum with? If you do that, you're going to be pushing this decision into mid-January. So those are the trade-offs. You recommend something today, and without asked that question a number of times, I don't think you've got an answer back. I would suggest put it out in a motion and kind of force council to tell you what they think.
Councillor Calgary.
Thank you for that, Mr. Wall. I'm gonna put a motion on the floor to move to the next general meeting, regular meeting, sorry, that we look at a $75,000 funding to come out of the 2018 non-budget amount to keep the museum, dinosaur discovery gallery open, as well as protect the fossils.
Seconder. Councillor Norbury. I think we've had quite a bit of discussion on this. Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we get a breakdown of the costs, or the breakdown on that 74, just for that meeting? For that meeting, if that's,
You have it all right here, but I can.
I just don't.
I can get it better. I've
Yeah.
wrote it all over the place just because of the way it was all split up, but I get
Yeah,
it.
but
broke
just
down.
so that's available for that meeting.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, carried. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Wall. Okay. 7.1. Tumble Ridge. 7.1?
8.1.
8.1.
Mayor Richard.
Oh, that was almost. Okay, 8.1, strategic planning. So I wanted to bring this forward on this agenda to ask councillors to start thinking about strategic plan for next year. I have recommended that we move this policy priorities committee, rename it as a strategic planning committee. So I think we need to start hashing out what we would like to see for next year as far as strategic planning goes. This is the start of it, so. What is some of your ideas on strategic plan for not just next year, but the next 4 years? Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Last year, started working on, and just a report should be coming soon. I'll sit down and talk with Mr. Wall, but that laydown area right now that's being used out by the dump. That could be potential for a fairground or a park, what have you, because at the end of the day, when that is given, when they're finished using that, the money that we'll have generated from there has to go back into recreation. So, you know, putting something together, report to see how that could work for Tumbler Ridge as an area as that could be used by, how we could build that so everybody could use it. So it could be, you know, just starting off, it'll be fenced. That's a big deal right there. We already have, Chris Fest already has dressing rooms, etc. But I mean, if we start small, build it up into something that the whole community could use, and then try to figure out, I mean, first of all, it'll be the cost of the district and having another area, but if we could work it into a fee for service or user groups are maintaining, I mean, that's just something that's gonna be on my agenda of what I wanna bring forward, and it's just, you know, I haven't started it, I haven't made any reports or anything yet, but that'll be something I'm gonna look at. And possibly looking at, working with, our economic development on a new tourism plan for Tumbler Ridge.
Okay.
Those are the two things on my priority list.
My only concern with that fairground is the gravel that has been laid down. It's gonna become incredibly dusty in the summertime. So if we were to go with the fairground there, I think we'd have to look into bringing in topsoil and reseeding it to grass. Mr. Wall.
Mayor Bertrand, they've agreed to decommission that site in the manner they like, so if we want to have it reseeded, we can. If there's area where that crushed gravel will help provide a more stable base for some sort of structures, they'll do that as well.
Okay. Excellent.
Good idea.
Councilor Kauka.
Yes, thank you. Mayor Bertrand.
Can I come back
Sorry.
to that just for 1 second?
Sorry.
So that does mean we need to know how we want that kind of to look before they leave at the end of the summer. Apologies, Councilor.
I just wonder if we can supply the strategic plans from previous. We know we have the book there and there's lots in there that hasn't been done and some of it's working. I'm just wondering if council's all been.
Yeah, it's on the back of every agenda.
No, but we have a strategic plan. I think it's called that. I'll have to look, I have it in mind at home. It has all of our steps 1, 2 and stuff in there.
The previous council, are you talking about that 4-year one?
Yeah.
Because council
Okay.
canceled that one.
Councilor Norbury.
Yeah, so there's two things I want to bring up. One was the question of Councilor Kauka. Do you mean the one that was like in 2014? It came in 3 plastic do-a-ting binders. Yeah. I read that one. It's available at the public library if anyone's interested. Yeah, for me, looking at our strategic plan moving forward, I think our recreation facilities is something we need to look at, what's overused, what's underused, and how we can adapt to our changing needs as a community. The Parks and Rec Master Plan is a first start to that. So I think that moving forward is a big plan, and also I believe we really need some facilitation of our volunteers and nonprofit organizations. You know, connecting people together. You know, I'm constantly, well, I wouldn't say constantly, but I've had a lot of people come up to me and saying, well, I want to volunteer, why can't I volunteer? And I just say, well, what do you like to do? Go talk to somebody, get out and volunteer. You know, I think having a facilitator to connect volunteers with organizations would be a great opportunity. Also maybe somebody connecting our nonprofit organizations and societies. What Vernon does is that they host there's one facilitator that gets all the nonprofits together once a quarter, and what they do is they talk about the hot topic of their town, right? So homelessness. What can all the nonprofits do together to address this issue, right? A good example would be, so, you know, you get right now, we'll talk about, you know, on Facebook there's a big issue with, you know, with kids and getting in trouble and stuff. Well, what if all the nonprofit organizations came together and said, okay, well, what can we as societies do to help overcome these issues in our particular organizations? And apparently it has positive social success. You know, I don't know if that's something that that's what our town is ready for yet, but I think it's a great way to connect everyone.
I agree with you. I think one of my visions during the campaign was to try and hold those quarterly nonprofit meetings again with all of the societies, and I think that's a great forum to try and bring some of those issues to light, and also bring in new volunteers as well. No, that's a good idea. Facilitator. Councilor Madinsky.
I was just gonna thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Just wanted to just extend on what Chris Marbury said there. Like, as a facilitator, I think it'd be great to have somebody being able to research funding options for the nonprofits, so they can do grant writing. Would be probably a good benefit for a lot of the nonprofits and even new groups. You guys are gonna be sick and tired of me bringing this up all the time, but my main strive and thing that I wanted to get done was the mountain biking here in the district. So just bring you out on a bike more often so I can be conditioned. So, that's it's in the works right now. So yeah, it'll be coming up soon on the agenda eventually, and there are lots of good reception from the province, ministries, BC Parks and Recs, talked to Duncan as well, just for tenures on with community forest. We've also talked to BC Parks about that as well. So there's lots going on there. It's kind of going to be very exciting, hopefully. That's my main one for now.
No, I had a meeting with a couple members from the Mountain Bike Society there today, and the potential is huge. It's definitely an untapped resource in our area. The amount of people that do bike in town is significant enough to definitely warrant some development there, and the potential to get to a level of hosting a weekend event is very, very great in this area. And also to have our community forest be involved, possibly financially, but also right from the ground when they're doing their logging to start prepping possibly for new trail. There's a very good opportunity there for involvement there. So I'm excited about it as well. I kind of look forward to the future to see where that could go, and it's also giving our youth another opportunity for recreation as well. Not only our youth, but also all of our residents. So, yeah, that's a good one. Councilor Majinski.
Thank you. I'll just extend on to that again, Mayor. The reason I moved to Tumblr was that I seen the potential here. So I researched all over BC where I'd like to move, and that was one of the reasons was here because there wasn't anything here. So that was something that could be started from the ground up, where you could build it to something where it could be very beneficial just because of our demographic. The lower mainland, all of lower BC, southern BC, is flooded with biking up here. We don't have much, but we do have a huge population base. Went to an open house kind of meet and greet in Dawson Creek, and over 40 avid bikers came out, and they said they had nothing for them here, and so they always go drive to travel. So there is, and those are avid bikers. Like for us, the main goal would be to have something to get people like an introductory into biking. So just to build the skills, being able to ride, corner, balance, stop, learn how to jump and progress. So it's not just to be a good mountain biker and be in the mountains. It's going to be on cross-country trails, loops, easy access, and things that are fun. So a skills park and stuff like that. So down the road, that could be all potential here, and I think would be really well accepted, not just for the community and the kids and the families here, but other communities as well. And we can also get different types of funding, just like they do at Satsu down in Williams Lake, where they incorporate a lot of the First Nations groups. So there's a lot there to be.
Yeah, and if any of the councillors would like to do any research on that, Burns Lake has put together a phenomenal biking area for Burns Lake, and they've also incorporated camping, outdoor recreation within their biking trails as well. So it's definitely a model that we could foresee for Tumblr Ridge as well. So yeah, it's a good one. Councilor Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Councilor Majinski, I have a 3-speed with a nice banana seat that's ready to go. So, I think bike trails. I actually like the idea of bike trails, but I'd like to see during the campaigning we were talking about using the rec center during the summer for kids' activities, and I think that's something I'd like to look at. It's going to be tough, I think, to try to find something that's going to interest a high number of kids. But I think, I don't know, maybe, talk to the teachers and see if they can find anything out at the schools. But I think using the rec center, like the arena during the summer it doesn't have to be all summer. It could change, a few times, as long as you don't have to do too much. But I think it's, like Chris says, it's underutilized, and I'd like to see that being sort of looked at during this summer.
Councillor Hall, you tried to run a ball hockey on the rink in summer. Was it last year?
Yeah, the last couple of years I tried it, yeah.
How
Yeah, you get about it's worth of use out of it, and then it drops off, yeah.
you find that it was like in the July, August months where people were traveling?
Yeah, there was zero interest when the kids were out of school. There was zero interest there. But the rec center did have those, I don't know, those balls that the kids get inside of, bounce off of each other or whatever. They had those down in the arena. Those were a big hit down there, and you know, we also actually rent the arena as well. We go down and shoot pucks and stuff in the arena. I know that in my mind the curling rink doesn't get used at all, and you know,
That's
to
another thing.
add to what he was saying there, and we've looked at ideas in the past of putting some flooring into the curling rink, and then having things in there like a batting cage, ping pong tables, golf simulators. Like we had a whole slew of ideas we were throwing around, but then the problem came: is that something we can keep year round, or do we move that out in the winter and then bring it back into the summer? And you know, who's going to run it and what's the program? But that's
Storage would be an issue.
discussion, right? So
It's definitely a good idea. Councillor Hall.
may as well just go into what I was thinking here. So you don't have me sold on joining the strategic planning meeting and the policy and priority meeting at this point. I don't see the benefit of adding the two. I think you're going to see that meetings will run extremely long if we start trying to do two of it at the same time. My opinion is that the strategic priority should be set at the beginning of the year. We should have heavy meetings on it in December and January and set our course for the rest of the year. And I don't think we bite off too many things. If we go in and we try to do 5 things that each councillor wants to do, and we've got 37 things or 35 things on our plates, what ends up happening is we spin our wheels and we don't get anything done. I think we need, as a strategic priority, is to focus on a few. Whether that's 3, whether that's 5, I don't know. That's my opinion. That's what I've seen in the past works best. But to me, like, there's some one-offs here that kind of could tie into a larger community funded events that we're looking to do, or priorities. But to me, a couple of the things that I'd like to see improve our healthcare services. I think we've got to have a big look at doctors, nurses, 911 services, the transportation services to and from town, and getting more healthcare professionals, mental health workers, youth counselors, people like that into town, and get that sorted out. I think that is really lacking in our community right now. I think we need to continue with our asset management plan. I think that's something that we have to set in motion. We have this bite off another portion of town that may need paving. We don't just pave because we have to or we want to. We need to see if there is any areas that need it this year. I'm thinking it's likely going to be a much smaller area than the previous 2 years. Continue with street sides, walk catch basins. If that stuff needs to be replaced, we need to get at it and get that done. I think another thing I'd like to try to get us to focus on is the improvements to the community center. So it's been touched on here a couple of different ways. One thing that I think that I'd like to have us look at is the possibility of upper decking the curling rink. So right now the curling rink, it's set up to have 4 lanes in it. They only utilize 3 because the outside lanes, they have water issues and they something, when we changed the shell of the community center, something has happened and there's melting on the outside edges, or the outside edges of the rink don't work properly. Bernie may be able to attest to that. But I've seen it in other communities where they've been able to take existing buildings like that. That thing is 40 feet high, or ridiculous. You don't need, there's no curling stones going up in the air 40 feet. It's nearly as high as the hockey rink. And we never ever touched the roof in the hockey rink with a puck. Very, very rarely have I ever seen it happen. So the idea that I had is if we could upper deck the curling rink for a reasonable amount of money, you use a product called Q decking, and it's basically, that's the product you put in, you coat it with concrete, and you got a concrete layer up there supported by posts, that we may be able to then really upgrade our gym. So we peel all that stuff out of the rock pit gym where it is, move it upstairs there, integrate maybe a running track or at least a sprinting area. They have the push carts where, we can work on health improvements in Tumbler Ridge. There's a lot of people that are involved in the Emperor's Challenge that could utilize that year round for their training. And it's kind of a twofold thing there as well. It then opens up the Rock Pit Gym area for the possibility of expansion for childcare services. There was some discussion about expanding childcare services and looking at a standalone building. I don't think that that's the direction that we should head in my mind. And I think that this gives them the opportunity, if they needed to expand, there's room there. If they don't need to expand, that's fine. But the gym definitely does. From what I remember, the gym is the only thing that we have in the entire community that makes money. It's the only thing that we have. From a previous report, I have to get Mr. Wall to confirm that. It's the only thing that we had that made money in the entire district of Tumbler Ridge.
It's definitely used, and it's very well supported.
Very well supported, and it's packed. That place is jammed. So that's a couple of things, and the last thing is, we can't start any mines or windmills in Tumbler Ridge, but we can create an environment to try to capture the people that come to live in the community. And I think we've got to continue on with our rural plan land development. I think we need to have building lots available for people to come to Tumbler Ridge that are reasonably priced and an adequate size to do a turnkey operation, and that's not just for heavy industry, that's for small industry as well. If people want to get businesses started here, they need an opportunity to get into something that's reasonably priced. It's not a $500,000 investment to try any store in town. They need a spot where they can get a small building and put up and take a run at something. So those are a couple of things that I would like to start looking at as strategic planning. And obviously, I think the elephant in the room is still the caribou issue. We need to get that sorted out and get our voices heard at that table at some point. I'm very, very hopeful that the government's going to come to the table and actually give everybody an opportunity to discuss the plans and what we're going to do here. So, yeah, that's my take on the strategic planning.
It's good. My only concern with the upper decking idea is the curling ring lounge. That'll take away from any kind of viewing of the curling ring. Does that lounge get used as a viewing area?
Yeah, that's.
They've got a lower lounge in the curling arena. It's been done that way for 25 years, right? There's a lower lounge there that nobody sits in, nobody watches from. They go upstairs and they have a few drinks. That's great. They can move that bar area or whatever downstairs. The area upstairs could be for the gym. That could be a booster juice. That could be a health thing. It could be the area where you rent your equipment from or whatever. But to me, it's time to change it. You need to look at something different up there.
Councillor Norbury.
I think with Councillor Howell, I'm really hoping that this recreation master plan is going to show us that this is what people want. Where we put these things, all the things you're saying, I'm hoping, because everyone I talk to about this recreation master plan, like, get in there, get your opinions in, because I think that's what I mean when I say look at our recreation facilities. There are some areas, the gym, it is very overused in comparison to other areas, and I think we need to look at how to expand those areas, right? The gym is some way that we make money, but also it's overused, I believe. Like it's too small for its purpose. So I'm hoping that recreation master plan can lead us down that path to justify how we can invest more into these facilities, because it's the Emperor's Challenge. I tried to get ready for Emperor's this year in May, April, that's a short season to start getting ready to train. And all of our residents, you see during the summertime, they're all walking around all the time. So I think, relying heavily upon that recreation master plan, getting that input so that we can start down that path, I think is a key. But anyways,
Mr. Wall, when is that plan supposed to be completed? Early next year. Okay. Great ideas, you guys, and I think that's kind of the reason why I wanted to bring this to the meeting, was to get everybody's ideas out there and get everyone thinking about the direction we need to go for next year. I agree with pretty much every single one of these ideas. It's going to increase what we have here, and it's going to focus on making life better for our residents, and I think that's really what our focus needs to be for the next 4 years. As far as the asset management, absolutely, that needs to continue. A big part of that asset management as well is going to be the building envelopes. I'm pretty disappointed that there wasn't any decisions made last year to capture next year's construction phase. We've got some major issues with some of our buildings in town here that we really need to look at. Number one, roof repairs. So that's something that needs to come to light here very quickly to try and capture the construction phase next year. So, no, it's great ideas, for sure. Anyone else? Councilor Madinsky?
Did Mr. Cook have anything to add, or?
Nope.
Nope.
Nope, all my stuff's already on the 2019 budget for discussion.
Awesome.
That was from previous council that we voted for, so there's a few items I they're already on there.
Okay,
Did whatever.
I think we can move on. Any notice of motion? No? Okay. We'll go to item 11, question and answer period. See, we have a couple of guests here, so do you have any questions for us by chance?
I got a question, clarification on a couple of points.
Okay.
And one of them I may not wind up clarifying much because it is so complex with the operation of the museum and the funding from PRD and this. But first clarification I want to make is that while the museum has had a history of having two paleontologists, one of them was the curator overall the operation, plus acting as a semi-general manager. The other one was the collections manager, taking care of the collection, all the recording that needs to be done to identify the fossils, where they came from, what they are, store them properly, and all of those kind of things. For the past 6 or 7 months, well, we were closed for a couple months when our funding was refused last year, funding request. But when we did reopen and had enough money, we only hired one paleontologist. We've not been employing 2 paleontologists in the last several months. And as Councilor McCall pointed out, our plan going forward is to create that general manager position, which would take a lot of the managerial responsibility away from the scientific people and let them work on the science. The technician is a key to that operation because the curator paleontologist does not have enough time to do all of the scientific. They'll head up the research out in the field, and the writing of papers and all of the things that come out of that work. But it's the technician that does the actual physical work of preparing the displays that Councilor Burkell mentioned. If we want those displays in the gallery, pardon me, I'm getting old, my memory is starting to wander a bit. But you need that technician position. And for a paleontologist, one technician is about the bare minimum. The preference would be 2, but we're not looking at hiring 2. If we can get the province on board, we can do that. just by way of example, the Hadrosaur skeleton that we've had sitting in storage for the last year and a half, would take $1 billion at least a year and probably 2 years to prepare for public display. To do anything more than just put it on display, if we were actually to try to construct a physical representation of that, we'd probably be in the $150,000 to $500,000 range, however far you want to go with that project. So I think that it's important to understand that the general manager position will really take away that whole administrative role that the paleontologists were carrying.
Absolutely.
And their focus is, they're scientists and their focus is on science.
Absolutely.
It's not on running a museum.
Yeah.
So much. And they've done some amazing stuff over the years, what is developed over the years. Fantastic with all of the volunteer efforts over the years, all of those kind of things. But I think we need to leave them to do the science work and us to do the other. The other point of clarification I want to make is that the district is not paying for the paleontologists. Now, this is where it gets muddy. The previous council insisted that we not use district money for the science work. So we were relying on the regional district to provide the money for the science work. And the running of the non-science work was done with DTR money.
Right.
But that included the operation of the Dinosaur Discovery Gallery, which is really the public face of what the science work is doing.
And that's
where we show what the results are of the science work.
and that's pretty much where the funding requests have been allocated to, right?
There's a crossover there.
Yeah.
The other problem that was happening was the timing of the money release. And the regional district was releasing the money right in January. So they carried both sides of the operation for the first 5 or 6 months. And then the district money, which was released later in May, would carry both sides of the operation for the rest of the year.
Right.
So we can say that, no, the district money is not being used for science work, but in real terms, it winds up being used for the science work because of that difference in time.
And I do think the general manager is going to be able to help with that as well.
I think they will help.
Yeah.
The other point I wanted to make was that I'm really pleased about the discussion tonight because it's been really broad and a lot of good ideas come out. I think that we as volunteer organizations, and I'm speaking about the museum, the library, to some extent, the board is all volunteers. Tier cares, you could go on and on and on. We're all interested in building a better community. And finding a way to bring us together to deal with some of our common difficulties is really,
I agree, and that's kind of where I'd like to get to as well, is to try and bring those nonprofit groups and together on a quarterly basis so we can all talk and maybe have a council liaison sit and chair those meetings is the right way to go. So I appreciate your comments, Jim. Thank you.
I was just going to say in a humorous way, although Councilor Howard touched on it already, but I was ecstatic when I saw our Quiz Fest asking for $150,000.
That's absolutely. Thank you, Jim. Mrs. Coots.
In terms of your getting the nonprofit groups together, we used to do it. When the mines closed, we were getting together monthly to talk about what we could do for the community, but also to coordinate so that we weren't scheduling things on the same weekends or the same nights. So yeah, if we get that started again, that would be wonderful.
I agree. Great, thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to take a recess for 10 minutes before we go into close. Okay. I have to go to wash.
Yeah. I'll give you okay.
He would have done mine, yeah.